Afternoon, everybody. So, the topic that we have today is extremely interesting. It's the buzzword today in consulting. What we say is that we used to consult about this topic one out of thousand cases. Today, this has become one out of two cases, right? So, that's how important sustainability is as a buzzword in the boardroom. Effectively, if you just step back and look at why this has become the buzzword, for three key reasons, the three big issues we are facing today. One, we are unsustainably consuming our resources, and therefore there is a lot of talk in the global media among corporate houses on whether we are leaving enough for the next generation. And therefore, conserving resources, uh, circular economy has become a buzzword these days. The second big topic is around climate change. So everything to link to wastage or anything to do with the climate has become a buzzword. And third, general upliftment of people or standard of living are the three big issues. However, if you just step back and look at it, we acknowledge this, but most of us will say that we've done very little about this topic. Today, if you ask me, the panel that we have today is very interesting. We have a divided panel between retail real estate developers and operators, and we have a combination of some really interesting retail brands. So the way probably we could run the panel today is I can let each of my panelists probably speak about 5 minutes about their respective companies, how they're looking at the sustainability agenda. But ideally, we would like to converge and conclude on how how people like us or influencers like us in this ecosystem can work towards this agenda in the long run, given that we have just taken baby steps. So without any further ado, I'll pass the mic to Mukesh sir to probably open the discussion.
Thanks, Ashish. I think it's a very fancy word as of now. Uh, it's gaining ground, but we have a long way to go. Unless we take it out from the drawing room and the boardroom to the gullies and the street, I think we really have to work very hard on this. Uh, the larger corporates, they're still working and they believe in this. They have to take it down the line to people at the mid level. It's very, very important unless we reach there. Because the way consumption is happening in past 10, 20 years, and we are putting a lot of pressure on the environment. So you'll have to find a way out how to handle this. As far as the malls are concerned, we have done quite a bit because it's getting more organized today in terms of recycling water or reducing electricity consumption, having more green area, reduce plastics. We are doing all the, but I think it's very, very small. It's a very fraction. You really have to go a long way, and I think unless you start working together with the retail brands at all levels, including the food, if you look at food deliveries, using so much of plastic. The larger brands still look at the environment sustainability, but the smaller brands still have a lot of challenge in terms of cost. So as I said, we need to work. The government has to work together with the business houses how to reduce the cost, maybe give incentive to produce more environment-friendly products. But I think as of now, we started talking about it, and once we reach down the line, I think it's going to improve further.
Hi, I'm Bipin. I represent a development company called Prozone Into. We're into developing shopping centers. And I think from our point of view, creating sustainable development started very early. Fortunately, we had our partners from the UK, and they had already, reached a certain level of ECG sort of compliance. And I think the first thing from our point of view always started with on the drawing board, which was the design. And I think while people were really, fancying what Dubai is doing in terms of development, facades, etc., which was big glass facades, we recognized that very early that, every country, every city has its own climatic requirements, etc. So from our point of view, we started looking at how do we design our malls inward looking rather than outward looking. I think from that point of view, this was more about seeing how we can use less energy and create during peak hours, and also, ensure that we are able to create our own slowly move towards net zero. We are very far from that, but the initial design was meant to sort of sustain that. From our building point of view, I think a lot of it now I must compliment, the environment industry, from the point of view of that when you go and now build a new development. And when you go for renewals also, there's a lot of compliances which the industry or the departments are now putting on you to ensure that you become more and more energy efficient, you become more and more sustainable. Few things that we have at our end done, just to quickly tell you, is rooftop solar, for example. In both our centers, we have rooftop solar now, which caters to at least 45% of our overall energy requirements. Of course, sewage treatment plants to ensure that we are on zero discharge building, so we have zero discharge building. Waste management, a lot of the waste that used to come out, which was the wet waste, food waste, was going out. We've tied up with a piggery where they come and pick it up, and that's being used at piggery. So we're trying to do a little bit of our bit to see how we can keep our development sustainable. One thing I think I've realized is that every one of us, most of us rather, when we start something new, we put a capex towards, see how we can do better for the environment and sustainable. But as the buildings get older and as businesses get older, we tend not to put that much capex back in the business. And I think that's the learning process that I feel that we need to really adopt. How do we, even if the building has become old or the development is old, how do you reinvest in that business? Because somewhere down the line, you're so conscious of profitability that sustainability is overshadowed by profitability. So I think from our point of view, there's a lot to be done in terms of from where we are and where we need to go.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sonali, CEO of Tonic Retail. We're a fashion accessories company with about 140 stores through department stores like Lifestyle and Shoppers Stop. We are in the business of fashion jewelry, ethnic jewelry, and men's jewelry as well. In our business, jewelry in its nature in itself is very polluting. And so we really went back to the ground and saying, what could we as a brand do in sustainability? Was it relevant to our business? And more important, was it important to our customer? The one few things that we decided to do was saying, the footprint that we left from the distance from vendors to our factories and warehouses was too long. So how do we move supply chains closer to where we needed to deliver to our stores? We've moved from international sourcing, which was about 100% pre-COVID, to now just 30% and 70% is local sourcing. Now, that makes great sustainable sense because it's a shorter carbon footprint, but it also made economical sense as well as sense to the customer because it got product to the customer a lot faster. So what we started doing on our sustainability journey was how do we create impact that has impact on the planet or people, but also has impact to our bottom line. And that is challenging for a business like ours because honestly, there isn't a textbook or anywhere to refer to saying these are the things you can do in your business. Some of the things that have happened with us, with our vendors, is that most of our vendors have moved to solar energy. They are rainwater harvesting. They're making sure environments are conducive to employees working, especially in the fashion jewelry space. And we're moving into more recycled materials being used in jewelry. We've also started packaging, be it in our cartons. We no longer use new cartons. We use recycled cartons. All our packaging is recycled paper. But I think the biggest challenge for brands is unless the customer really understands the efforts that are being made and values these efforts, it makes it a lot more challenging for us. And I think to keep it relevant to customers, there's a lot of work which we are trying to do at an education standpoint. It's early days, but we've taken some steps towards that.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ankur Bhatia. I am the CEO of Chakodi India Retail Limited, and we have a couple of brands in our portfolio which are to some extent linked to the sustainability angle which we are discussing today. The biggest one out of them is Columbia Sportswear. And we have a couple of other brands as well, out of which some are B Corp certified brands as well, which is typically considered the highest level of sustainability which any company or brand can achieve. Uh, are we doing enough on the sustainability front? Clearly not. Uh, is climate change or sustainability a question which warrants a serious discussion? Clearly, yes. But I think to merge the gap or to fill the gap between the two, there would be a lot of action which would be required, not just from companies, but all of us as individuals, as government, various governments of the world. And a lot of serious talk would have to be held to bridge the gap because uh, actually not just mere talk, a lot of action on the ground would need to be done and executed for us to actually reach anywhere close to reaching a carbon neutral stance. So a lot of work which needs to be done. I can see a lot of people sitting here, and if the moderator allows, we could actually do a show of hands and just ask people if all of our products were to become 10% more expensive, would people here and would people sitting outside, a lot of them who can't even afford 2 meals a day, would still be willing to invest in our brands or in our products? Maybe the answer would be
Let
no.
them answer.
Sorry.
Let them answer.
Should we?
Yeah,
Should we?
Yeah,
Why don't you go ahead and ask?
no, I think the question is very clear, right? I mean, everybody is talking about sustainability. Sustainability comes at a cost. The debate that I would have anyways opened up would be, are the consumers willing to pay for that cost, right? Are we willing to pay a premium for a brighter future for the next generation, right? Very simply put, I'll just take Ankur's question forward. If your living costs increases by 10%, but it allows the future generation a better lifestyle, how many of us would be willing to spend 10% extra today? Just a show of hands, right? I mean, request all of you all to put your hands up. Yeah, I mean, statistically not very, very high, but clearly,
I think it's a pretty large number, but let me just remind you, just a few years back when a lot of brand stores started getting those paper bags and they started charging, most of customers to complain, why should I pay extra for paper bags? Because it costs you very high to make them. They refused to pay. I'm sure you guys will remember all this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we have a very educated audience here. But when the costs of paying there's a hue and cry when the inflation of the country crosses 5%. And here we are talking about an overnight 10% increase in anything and everything, which the government can actually mandate from tomorrow. But they are also fearing the same fact that would the consumers be willing to pay 10% extra for anything and everything we are doing today? Having said that, I am not trying to underplay the importance of climate change and sustainability. It is important, but I hope the answers to this issue, this problem, come faster than they currently are.
can we let all the panelists complete, and then probably we can open the discussion, right? I would still request to respect the panelists. Let them put their point of view, and then we can open up the questions. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Prakash Patel here from Bhumiwal Outlet Mall. So basically, in real estate, previously before decade, there was no mandatory to make the sustainable buildings. So it is not a like if you don't have HTP, you don't have a treatment plant, it is allowed before. But now it is a mandatory. So the question was the sustainability, how you can impact and how it can be done by the developer, by the retailers, and everyone. So as per my understanding, if it is not mandatory, it is not going to be the like it will be challenged to accept with the all. Because it was the mandatory. If you want the OC for the building, you have to be you should have the HTP TP plant. You should have the water treatment plant. You should have solar panel for the roofing. You should have the parking, 80% of parking for the solar charging. So this is the mandatory things. Then only it got the the developer went there and did. If it was not mandatory, it would not have done. So in India, if you make something mandatory, it will be run. But if you say that from my heart I want to do it, so I think so it is a difficult task to manage this many population and make it sustainability. But it should be sustainability, and if it is mandatory, the cost is going high, and it will be acceptable by all. Like, so there is no, like, he has just asked the question. But if something is mandatory, there was no opinion like yes or no. It has to be yes. That was the thing where for the sustainability, if government supports and make this or everything mandatory, definitely it will be a sustainable things.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sumit. I represent a brand called Echo Shoes. Echo Shoes sells in more than 2,500 stores across the world and also 14,000 point of sales in worldwide. When it comes to Echo Shoes, and we are into business of leather. And when it comes to leather in your mind, you think a lot of waste of water, a lot of sludges being developed, a lot of CO2 emissions, a lot of not so good things to our mother nature. But let me tell you what we do at EcoWays. We do have technologies called Ritan, which takes almost 20 liters less water per height, which also results into 34% less CO2 emission, which also results into 40% less consumption of electricity. What that means is we have been thinking on sustainability not from today, but from a very early stage. And there is a lot of usage of solar panels in our all the factories, more or less, and also at our head office in Denmark. We are committed to sustainability, and this is exactly what we see in our shoes. One more aspect on sustainability, when we speak about, it is a fancy word. We speak about that on a day in, day out. It starts from a process when you go to a general store, and then the general storekeeper asks you for a carry bag. Would you take it? Would you not take it? It starts from there. Then that sense of emergency or sense of that requirement or sense of that being rightful to that structure of in your mind that you need to be sustainable, you need to be emitting less carbon starts from there. So I think many of us believe that today when we go to a general store and then you take an option or not take an option of taking a plastic bag, it starts from there. But having said that, yes, today there are people who have this in their mind, even if they take the bag or they don't take the bag. But how it transforms to in our local society, in our products, in our buildings, in our malls, in our usual localities, this is something to be seen. People know about it, but I think there is a lot of awareness to be spread amongst all the people, all the consumers, all the citizens of the country that we need to be sustainable, not for today, tomorrow, but it has to be, it has a recurring process which has to come into the picture. People speak about, Oxa are talking about zero water discharge, zero carbon emittance, and they do have a milestone for 2030, 2040, and things like that. But to me, I think this is still a long way to even calculate that whether you will be there or you will not be there by that point of time. But I think, since we're talking about that, I'm glad that we are into that discussion and glad to share my views and also take the views of the panel. But again, coming to a leather business, footwear business, we are committed to the current topic is called sustainability in the shoes. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Saurav. I'm from Accessorize London. We are a women fashion accessory brand. Our categories essentially are handbags, fashion jewelry, hair, scarves, sunglasses, and similarly we do Angels product, which has the same category for the kids. For Accessorize, sustainability has been there for a very, very long time. And we try to think in a manner that we do sustainability in a sustainable manner. So what do we mean by that? What we mean by that we have some long-term goals. Like from a brand perspective, we are looking to be net carbon zero by 2040. We are going to be B Corp certified, which is a US-based certification company, which certifies essentially what it means that you're doing whatever you are saying about different aspects of the business from a fair practice, from a sustainability point of view. Sustainability for us is there right from product, the way we make it, from whom we get it, to our packaging, to our transit packaging, and everything that comes in between. Our products are, so for argument, for example, handbags. We have a product range which will be made out of recycled plastic. So there will be a certain range within the handbags. Then we will have the cotton products which will be made, which will be coming out of BCI certification supply. So that means that the cotton which is used is a sustainable and environment friendly, and the trade practices are the practices what it should be. So on and so forth. I mean, that is how we do for all our categories, where everything means that we are also working towards our long-term goal, as I mentioned, by 2040 to be net carbon zero, and then other certifications that we take into account. So, from a brand perspective, we go on to the extent of adopting villages. In Rajasthan, we are working with villages where we work on water harvesting and conservation, and we try to make sure that we are giving back to the society as much as we can. So we take this very seriously from a brand perspective, and that has been there from the very beginning for a very, very long time. And that is how the brand continues to look for it in the future, and we'll continue to make sure that we are giving back to the society and to the environment in as much and as many ways as possible. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. If the panelists are fine, I can probably pass the baton back to you. Probably you can probably ask the question.
Yeah, Mr. Ankur, I am fully agreed. I'm not biased because I am also into working with the textiles. So for also it is my bread and butter and routine. So just an example, you quoted 10%. Why I'm fully agreed? Because if we see the cost perspective, definitely we will be focusing only on that part. So we have to have a holistic view. How it is going to, as some time back, Mr. Siddharth told, what we are going to leave for the next generations. Means where we ourselves would like to be, in what form, what shape. One example I am giving, like lot of industries, the wet processing. We are also into wet processing, but we are zero discharge. So if we are discharging our effluent without treating it, definitely we are polluting the environment, and the consequences of the same, maybe in the form of disease or whatever, whoever, anybody can be affected. Probably the cost of paying by you to take care, to treat yourself medically will be more than the 10%. It may be reflecting in any ways. This is what I personally feel. So being sustainable, for that paying some amount of premium is definitely justified, and it is, I feel, very cost effective. One more example I want to give.
But we are actually running short of time, so you'll have to be
Just
quick with the
quickly,
question.
just quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. And secondly, why I am convinced, because water pH should not be more than 6.5 to 8,
Yeah.
right? Drinking water. If in any particular area where these things are not being taken care of, if it is exceeding, again it is causing a trouble, right?
So largely the entire country, right?
Exactly. So I want to say, as a whole, one or the other way it is affecting. Same way,
course.
if the TDS is,
I come from Delhi.
Very
The
good.
AQI barely falls below 200.
my goodness, and TDS, if you see,
TDS is
yeah,
the
should be
the-
900 to 1200 maximum.
So I grew up in a city where I could actually drink water
Ankur,
right from the
Ankur,
tap.
Ankur.
Right.
But today, in my city, where I stay currently, the TDS barely falls below 2000.
Ankur, I
My-
think we should come back to topic.
So,
Yeah, that's okay.
So I've concluded. I'm fully
So
agreed.
you have
with-
re-emphasized the point that sustainability is not a choice;
Right.
it's a mandate.
It's a
Unfortunately, the government is not mandating it as of now, and businesses don't have the financial
but
wherewithal.
it is worth paying. It is worth paying in advance instead of getting other troubles. I'm fully
Sir,
agreed with you.
you believe that, and I'm happy that you do. But when my brand's customers start believing it in majority, that would be the time when I would be forced to offer sustainability as a choice to the consumer. Unfortunately, in today's age, in today's scenario, that's not the case. So that's
I'll give you a simple example. Sir.
I appreciate the point around increasing cost, and which is a very valid point. But at the same time, we have seen that households are moving away from plastics and all of that. The reason could be health based. It's going to be a journey, a long one. My only request to brands like yours is you have the capability to make a difference at a larger scale, and somewhere it needs to start. Let's not keep it aside as a fancy word and not work around it. Is the only request I wanted to make to this panel.
No, please don't request, because see, we have screwed up the environment in the last 20, 30
Yeah.
years, and we'll have to rejuvenate the environment also
Yes.
in the next 20, 30 years. It's not a choice.
Yeah, and it's also a demand and supply gap in terms of the products, right?
Unfortunately, screwing up the environment didn't require money, but rebuilding it is
Of
going
course.
to require money. That's the difference. That's the
Yes.
debate, actually.
Yeah.
I think we recently
Thank you.
did put waterless urinals in our malls. The number of complaints we're getting is that where is the push system from the customer?
There's not enough
You know,
awareness about it.
and so it's a lot of education which is required, a lot of efforts that you have to go through, and I think somewhere down the line, consumers will always not make the choice of cost. So I think corporates and businesses have to initially push that environment issue, and then slowly I think consumers, and I find younger generation more and more adaptable to that. So I think, but one point is there, and I agree with him, that wherever you mandate it is where it will get done. So somewhere down the line, the government has to, put certain mandates, put certain, criterias for buildings, for manufacturing processes, etc., to do that. But if we were buying DG sets for our mall, suddenly my person comes and says it's double the cost. What
Yes.
happened? He said, no, we are required to do now CPVB 4. That is why. But if it was CPVB 2, they would have never manufactured CPVB 4. So I think somewhere down the line, it has to be a push-pull model where I think we need to somewhere down the line also invest ourselves as businesses and try and keep profitability also in check, but bring a little more sustainable future.
You know what it changed in the last 10 years, what I've noticed. Earlier we used to think only about the operational cost, not too much of capex cost. Today we are willing to pay that extra money to save something on energy or the water. So today if we have to buy something which is a little expensive, pay 20% more, we are more than willing to pay that kind of money because we know it's going to save our energy cost, which is basically again towards the environment only. Same thing with the water. I'll give you a live example today. We are doing our LED on the facade. If I do something a little cheaper, my electricity cost will be very, very high. It'll be at least 30% higher. But if I put 20% more capex, my electricity consumption will come down with 30%. So I think it's better to put more capex today, and so that you can save on energy. It's also going to help you in your bottom line, but at the time you're also saving the energy for the future. And number two, it's going to be sustainable. So I think the whole mindset is changing slowly. We are looking at this as, we also look at, sometimes we look at the vendor, is he having the sustainable practices? Can I pay a little 5% more and give the contract to him rather than give it to somebody else? So these things are gaining ground today. If you look at the retailers as well, I don't think there's a mandate for them to use paper bags. It costs more. I think a lot of these retailers have gone ahead and started using the paper bags. So I think there's an awareness about this. But as it has started at a very higher level, at the corporate level, it has to come now to mid-level as well, which will definitely take time because cost is really a big factor in this. Unless the government gives incentive to give subsidy to so that the cost comes down, it'll be very difficult for smaller business also to get into this.
I think fair point. What we also need, as we spoke about, we need guidelines, policies from the government laid out in a complete good manner. Now, a challenge at times which it comes to us as a brand is those policies are not well defined. And the policy makers which make those policies have some, they're not clear in what they're supposed to say. We are facing that many a times in our usual certification these days. When it comes to comprehension of a policy in a better manner, there are several round of meetings which happen, and still we don't find any solution to that. So even if we talk about that, if we talk about that path, we talk about policies, procedures, I think that there is a need of an independent ministry itself, which can lead the way, which can educate the customers, which can educate the brand, which can educate the companies how to reach at that level that you become sustainable for tomorrow. So it's a long process. Yes, we do need support from the authorities here, and a clear support in which a direction is clear, the laid down policies are clear, the steps are clear. That I'm sure we as a brand can also adopt to those policies later. Happy to evaluate these policies. Happy to evaluate what is there to offer to us. We are all in. We are there already from the global perspective when we do apply that in our products. And also glad if we can introduce the same in the country itself.
Oh, super. I mean, just to sum this up, right? I mean, all of us are agreeing that there is awareness about the topic. We're saying that policy will be a very important trigger for us to be on this path. The biggest constraint for us is that in retail, the cost structures currently are not the best. Probably we are one country where retail is still not mature enough, not delivering reasonable shareholder value return, and therefore it becomes extremely difficult for my colleagues on this panel to sort of muster that money and increasingly start putting on these agendas. They're doing in their little way. But the larger question for us is that the problems are where it is, right? And we need to think about what will trigger this change. And therefore, that's the next question I would pose to the panel. What they believe is the way forward to sort of drive this agenda of sustainability. We understand if the regulators come at us and we'll have to do it, we will do it. But effectively, it's the job of the entire ecosystem, right? And therefore, I'll open the panel for their feedback or their comments on what they believe will be the path to a sustainable future for the retail sector in India.
I think it starts from educating people about this. People living in metro, larger city, they still have some idea about this. When you go to smaller city, they don't even think about it. They have no idea what you're talking. So unless it goes down the line, people across the level, and the norms are more stringent for any factory being set up or residential building being set up or business house being set up. Unless it become more stringent, I don't think it's going to give you any result. It's important to have more regulations, and there should be a system to check this. There are people, they may bypass it. They have massive restrict system, which should be honest system, so that it is monitored. And some they are defaulter, they are penalized. Somebody is doing well, maybe give incentive to them. You have to look at from both ways. The products which are more sustainable, can government look at small businesses to give them some kind of incentive or subsidies so that they produce more? So they're going to help the end business houses. If you look at all these things, I think it's going to help in a longer way.
I mean, from the way I see it, even if we were to push forward for a gold certification of IGCPC, there is no incentive which is given by the government to say if this building is gold certified, then your power cost will be lower by, let's say, 50 paisa or something. So I think somewhere down the line, a lot of effort has to initially come from the authorities, from the government bodies, to make sure that at least they empower and allow businesses to be able to invest in sustainability developments. From a consumer, I have a simple question. You all are retailers, so I'm going to start something very fresh. If we were a sustainable shopping center, doing everything possible to be zero, net zero, would retailers be willing to pay a little more rental for it? So we are asking the consumer to pay a little more. Will the retailer be willing to pay a little more rental, saying this mall is a sustainable net zero mall, so I want to be there and I'll pay an additional 10% rent just because they are net zero?
Sir, there is no problem. Yeah.
आप तो दे रहे हो, आप तो mall
Sir,
में
listen,
हो,
listen. Shopping center in Bombay cost you 800 rupees square feet. Come to us, we will give you in 150 rupees. You are going to get the 3 times sale in our the outlet mall. So the outlet mall is the next future, and outlet mall is the next solution for the sustainability.
I'd like to add to that. I think a retailer is willing to pay more for a property if the footfalls that come in a sustainable mall are going to be guaranteed to be higher than a non-sustainable mall. So it really comes down to, does the customer want to come to a sustainable mall? But that makes sense for a
The
retailer.
issue is that it's a vicious circle. So someone has to take the lead. So I'm saying if a mall takes the lead, the next person who has to take the lead, or the next business, is the person who's doing business. So B2B, then it can happen to a B2C. So I'm saying somewhere down the line, we're also focused on our profitabilities, our deliverables, that we don't really value sustainability as much as we should. And I think that's the reason I'm saying that something that becomes a requirement will always initially see, generally as people, and especially from India, we're used to, having conditions to us. So terms and conditions apply is always something that we are really used to as of now. And I think that's where slowly we need to bring that change. And if the consumer can see value in a sustainable mall, maybe they're willing to pay. I know one thing for sure. I've been in retail and now I'm in real estate. But I remember that when we moved to paper bag and we started charging for paper bag, and I'm talking many years back, people were willing to pay for the paper bag and say, I don't want a plastic bag, for two reasons. One, it was a very nice looking paper bag, and they could carry it home and they would want to show it off. But I feel that if we were to educate the consumer, make them understand the benefits of what is being offered to them, I think people may be willing to pay, but it'll be a slow process.
So the point which I was trying to make earlier was that most of the modern day problems are such great levelers, like COVID was. Irrespective whether you were rich or poor, all of us were shut inside our homes, right? Even this is a leveler. Irrespective where you are, what you are, it's going to impact you. So you might make a fancy sustainable mall in which we open a shop, though we don't make denims, and 90% of our collection is sustainable, and one section has denims lying in a corner, and most of the consumers actually go and pick the denim because everybody needs a denim, and every denim needs 4,000 liters of not a sustainable denim but a unsustainable denim requires 4,000 liters of water to be made, each denim. So it's not about a retailer or a mall developer. It's actually about each one of us. If the consumers don't change, I alone can't change. Neither can you. So that's the irony of the problem.
I think the effective way of, as you said, consumer don't change, and then everything, the cycle goes like that. It is this very small message. One example I'm going to give you is when you buy an Apple Watch. Apple Watch started a trend of 10,000 steps completion. I don't know where it has come from. You are fit, you are not fit is now decided by this watch. If you run 10,000 steps, you're fit, not doing it, not fit. So I'm saying these small marketing initiatives, for example, if you buy from this brand, you are adding to X number of carbon credits for that matter, or X number of sustainable parameters, then this will automatically drive consumers to go to that brand, and even if they can pay premium for that. As per the Bain & Company, still people can pay 12 to 15% more if we call yourself sustainable. Now the worry is that in the consumer's mind, they feel that the brands are trying to take some extra money out of you calling
The
sustainable.
problem is the people think that it's not a sustainable denim sold as a sustainable denim. That is the problem. Because half the time, you're always finding the negative in the.
So we spoke about you spoke about denim. Obviously, one of the brand in India will not take the name. Spoke about an ocean plastic denim, and they had the hoardings across the city, across the mall, and they spoke about that. It was a very small fraction of the denims what they make. But they use this as a great marketing tool for themselves, which actually also puts the customer confidence in the backyard. They feel cheated that, okay, fine, you're trying to say sustainable, but it's a very small fraction of that. And when people try to make this as a marketing tool for themselves, then customers have a yes or no kind of approach for buying any brand.
So I think since you asked the way forward, uh, I feel the way forward would be that we'll continue to go worse and worse, and a time will come when it will no longer be affordable for any one of us to take any further to make any further damage to the environment. A situation will arise, and then everybody will wake up, and then maybe 10-15 years down the line, suddenly things will start improving because there will be no longer a choice to do what we are continuing to do over the last many years.
I mean, just to add to that, COVID was a great leveler, like you said, right? And everyone could feel the economic impact. Businesses shut down, and there was a value that you lost to your business. Now, this year has been unprecedented heat this summer. And for a lot of brands which are seasonal brands, or brands that deal with, say, winter accessories, and we had a very late winter this year, there is a clear economic impact to our business. But I don't find us quantifying that value across the business and industry and sharing enough data saying this impact on the climate has actually had this value on our business. And I think if that sharing of information came together and people actually realize that climate change is having an impact, direct impact on our businesses. COVID was an example, for whatever reason, was an environmental impact if you break it down. And we actually say if we don't do something for environment change, it's going to eventually impact businesses in itself. So this is sometimes not just about the customer, but it really is about future thinking and future proofing our own businesses.
Any closing remarks? Great. A very interesting discussion. Ankur took it to the bottom, rock bottom, and we were trying to take this topic out, but very interesting. See, in my view, if you have to walk any journey, there is a disruptive way and an incremental way. The disruptive way for us here is where the consumer pays more and the regulators come hard on us, then only this will happen. But unfortunately, the probability of that may be low. If this is an incrementalist journey to what Sir mentioned, right? If the government is able to build a grade point incentive system where companies which are on the sustainable agenda are actually delivering the sustainable agenda get incentivized for that, then you will see some movement in that, right? So probably to sum this up, and we are almost at the nick of time, is that all of us believe that the awareness is high. Increasingly, this topic is moving from awareness to a corner pillar to a center pillar of our strategies. But the ecosystem will only develop if the doers or the companies which are on the sustainable agenda are incentivized, rewarded for what they are doing. I mean, that's in sum, the conclusion of this discussion. Thank you very much. I think we'll probably have to close the panel. We are probably a minute away from the time allocated to us. Well, sure, if you have any other questions. Do I see a hand up at the... Come ahead. No?
Do we have questions? Yes.
Thank you. Actually, my first question is to everyone in the audience. How many of you all use Clorox or Lysol in your home? Just be honest, raise your hand.
Sorry, come again.
How many of you use Clorox or Lysol in your home? The number is going to be a lot larger than what we're seeing.
I mean,
most of people.
Yeah, household penetration more than 95%. So yeah,
exactly.
Yes.
So, see, it's very easy to ask the businesses to be sustainable, but really it starts from the home. It starts by looking at your own consumer decisions, right? And try to walk when you can choose not to drive. The question to you guys is, like, how do you align your business interests with sustainability, right? And like, what are the obvious things that you guys are already doing in that realm?
I think most of them opened with that, right? I mean, everybody said that it's a small baby step they are taking in their own way. I mean, people spoke about the interventions they're doing on the supply chain, on the product side. People spoke about how they are working on their capex to make it more sustainable. I mean, I would let any of the panelists respond to it, but I think they started with that. So
I think it's a core value for most of the companies today. Anything what you do in the company, a established company, it's one of the core values, maybe in the top 3.
Yeah, hi. So I just wanted to bring in a perspective based on the point which the last gentleman said is half of the Indian economy is based on the agriculture. And the biggest impact is happening there. What we are talking today is just on the tip of the iceberg. The kind of chemicals, fertilizers are being used, the poisonous pesticides being used, the growth enhancers being used is phenomenal. And this is not only causing the huge impact to the ecosystem and the climate and the water pollution and soil pollution, this is directly going into our body through the, it's systematically coming into the fruits and vegetable and the grains which we are eating. And it is the cause of the increased instances of the heart disease, cancer, diabetes at younger age right now. And all of us sitting here are in the top 1% of the population of the India. But if we don't take that pledge that we will not consume that produce which is grown unsustainably and chemically, and we are willing to pay that 20-30% extra to the farmer to make him grow in an organic way or a Javic farming or a natural farming, then talking on these things will just be trying to handle the tip of the iceberg. The basic root cause needs to be addressed if we are talking of the sustainability. What we are trying to address is probably top 5%. The 90% is happening in the rural economy, somebody was saying.
Actually,
Anybody
not.
from farming
Most of the energy is getting consumed in the top 5% only. The farmers are not consuming energy. So you are talking of a different issue in terms of growing products organically, but they are not the ones who are living in lavish homes and consuming
I fully agree.
So
but
everyone, and more so the metros and the city, the people who are sitting here and outside, people like us, have to take that pledge and not the farmer who's doing that.
Absolutely.
If he's using pesticides which are not, that's a separate issue.
Ankur, see, the topic today was more confined or boxed around retail.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
No, I agree.
Most of us sitting here would be in 1%. We'll agree that probably we are. I started with this, right? We are unsustainably consuming the resources. It's not going to be good for the future. I think everybody echoes that point. I think it's just probably that this panel probably is not the most apt panel to respond to your question.
Yeah.
I think with that we'll close this panel.
And I want to ask you just one question.
Yeah.
There are a lot of organic food in the market. Do you buy them? It's 30% higher.
Yeah.
So you're contributing.
Yeah,
So
that's what
everybody
I'm
has to contribute like this.
Absolutely. That exactly is the point. I'm not raising question or anything, but I just wanted to bring in a perspective that the lot of damage is happening at the base level, which is in the villages and the rural economy. I agree that the energy consumption is much lower there, but there is a lot of other impacts which is happening on the environment there.
I just have one more thing. Today, when we are hiring, right, fresh graduate from an MBA school, when we're interviewing, we're not asking how much do you know about sustainability and can you help my business getting more sustainable? So today, to find a team within your organization to take time out to build a sustainable business or sustainable practices, we also need team members who are aware of how to do it, how to track it, how to measure it, and how to execute it. And unfortunately, I don't think colleges or schools are teaching how to do this. So the question is, how do we even begin if we don't have the knowledge set needed to do this right? And knowledge sharing today in our business, if I have to say, let's get jewelry manufacturers and businesses together and let's knowledge share how to be sustainable as an industry. I don't think that's very forthcoming right now. And I think that is something as industries we have to share more information that we're doing right or wrong.